I was recently told a story by someone who said that they had come to find faith in Christ. I asked them what happened, and they told me that they had lived a pretty degenerate lifestyle. They were doing drugs, and they took it upon themselves to read this passage where they would give themselves to Jesus Christ. And they did, and it resulted in them having a anxiety attack, shaking violently. And they thought, and this guy, he said he was going to die. He thought he was going to die, and his girlfriend was worried about him, and he was like falling on the ground and shaking. And I'm like, well, that sounds real crazy, but I'm like, I wonder if he was possessed, you know? I do think there are evil forces out there. Me, myself, I am not a Christian, but there are many questions that I do have, and a lot of people have brought this up. I think there are forces beyond our recognition, beyond our understanding, and I think it's fair to assume. I mean, humans didn't even know that radio waves existed until, like the 1800s? So there are forces that exist beyond our perception. That's a fact. In fact, when it comes to the Large Hadron Collider and all the research they're doing in quantum physics, we can't perceive any of this stuff, but we know it exists, right? Could there be something beyond? I think for most people of faith, the answer is duh, obviously. For a lot of the secular people, I don't think you can deny it because science says there is something else. The question is, what is it? Does it influence our behaviors? And I actually think we need to bring back exorcisms. To be honest, not that they went anywhere. They're still happening. There are stories about how priests are overwhelmed with requests. So we're going to talk about that today on The Culture War. Before we do, my friends, we got a great sponsor for today's show. It is Bearskin. Check out BAER.skin/Tim. You can get 60% off your Bearskin hoodie. These things are fantastic. Smart people are locking in their winter gear right now. The temperature's starting to go down. Hands down, it's the best time to prep for the coming winter months. Bearskin is running a 60% off deal right now, but only if you get your hoodie early. Hoodie's built like a tank. 340 GSM micro fleece, 10 pockets, clean, rugged fit, looks awesome. Plus, it zips right into the heavy storm rain jacket to become 100% waterproof when you need it. So whether it's cold, wet, or windy, you're not scrambling at the last minute. You'll get free U.S. shipping, fast delivery, and you have locked in winter gear early. That's a win-win. Do yourself a favor and text TIM to 36912 to lock in your 60% off. Again, that's 36912. You'll get sent a link straight to your phone so you can check it out later. Maybe you're busy driving, just get it. Shout out to Bearskin. These things really are awesome. It's one of my favorite hoodies. If not, just I absolutely love these things. Plus, the rain jacket is super light, so you don't get super sweaty. Big fan. Shout out to Bearskin. Anyway, my friends, on to the show. We've got a couple of great guests hanging out. Sir, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Sure. So, Father Aaron Williams, I'm a priest, a Roman Catholic priest of the Diocese of Jackson, Mississippi. I serve as the rector of St. Mary Basilica and Cathedral Catholic School in Natchez. I think part of why I'm competent to speak about this, I recently served as a consultant for a movie on exorcisms called The Ritual, starring Al Pacino. And then my academic background is I'm working on a PhD in liturgy, so in Catholic ritual. So I'm competent to speak about how the church acts in these moments, but I appreciate the invitation to be with you today.
Absolutely. When's this movie is out already?
It did. It came out at the end of May. It's on Amazon Prime now. The Ritual.
Interesting. Ooh, horror film. I want to watch that one. We got another gentleman hanging out with us.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Shane Smith. I'm a comedian by trade, but I also am a former leftist podcaster and all-around degenerate Satanist who ended up converting to Catholicism. And so now I spend a lot of my time doing comedy, but also spreading the gospel in any way, shape, or form I can. So I am uniquely qualified to be here because I have also experienced many dark and nefarious things and also the light. So pretty good times.
Right on. We also have Tate hanging out.
What's up, guys? Tate Brown here. I'm inquisitive Protestant, so I'm excited to get an expert on the situation.
We were hoping to get Ian here, but he is unfortunately sick, and only because he'd be like freaking out and saying crazy things at the same time. But I guess we'll start with the first question. Is demonic possession real?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier, right? Priests get calls all the time, and I'll be honest, right? I mean, the majority of calls, the overwhelming majority of calls we get, it's usually they're struggling with something, right? They're dealing with a mental issue, or someone in their family is, and they're hoping we have the silver bullet. But what I will say is, recently in the United States, we have seen a rise in demonic activity, and situations where the church will go and investigate, and we determine that there's not another medical or psychological explanation, and so the church can be involved. It's become enough of a need in the United States recently that a lot of dioceses, right? So that's how the church organizes itself under bishops in the U.S. A lot of dioceses are starting to educate more and more priests in the rite of exorcism so that they can continue this ministry. So we just had 2 priests in my diocese underwent training in Chicago for that. And just this last year, my bishop actually brought a group of exorcists in to speak to all the priests in our area, just to educate us so that we can recognize
what is happening. What are you seeing?
So I think there could be a lot of explanations of why this is happening. I think one of the reasons is we're in a culture now that is accepting more and more degenerate lifestyles, right? So we live in such an overly sexualized culture now that and it's not just sexualized, but it's sexualized in very obscene ways, right? And I think that's one gateway that is allowed to it. I think there's also, and you could speak to this, right? There's even a heightened interest, so to say, in things of the occult nowadays, right? In witchcraft and Satanism.
I would even say, as people often say, like we live in a post-Christian society, we live in like an atheist society, but I would go as far as to say it's not an atheist society, it's a pagan society. And the interest in like new age things and like spiritual yoga and witchcraft and tarot and astrology and magic and all these other things, that's paganism. And obviously paganism is playing around with demons and opening yourself up to spiritual things you don't understand. So that's like wildly pervasive in culture. I mean, 4 out of every 5 girls you meet on Tinder have a crystal under their bed or whatever,
Yeah.
They have a shoebox with a freaking voodoo doll in it or whatever, and they're reading The Secret and doing all sorts of weird like pseudo magical things that are very insidious and open yourself up to like who knows what.
I mean, I remember when I was little, right? I mean, you could see your horoscope in the newspaper, but people just did that for fun, right? It wasn't really something that people a lot of believe. Now you go on Snapchat, right, and they're going to tell you your astrology sign on Snapchat when you meet someone, right? I mean, we've reached that level of sort of paganism in culture today.
Yeah, what's that app? There's an app when I was a single person that women would make you download to see if you're compatible.
I know what you're talking about.
It's like it's like about your sign or whatever, and they take it so seriously. It's insane. I can't remember what it's called, which is probably good.
But in terms of the new training and the increase in requests for exorcisms, are you seeing things like what are you seeing that's unexplainable or that defies?
So the things that the church normally is going to look for, does this person have knowledge of something they shouldn't have knowledge of? You have someone who couldn't speak Spanish before, but now they can, or you have an 80-year-old woman that, now she can lift 50 pounds, right? It's never like Hulk level. It's not like what you see in the movies, but something that's unexplainable on that level. One of the things that I've been told to look for by a priest that's involved in this, if I go into a house and there's something there that they can't explain how it got there, and you do see things like that every now and then.
Like objects that...
Yeah, objects or just, well, does anyone know where this came from?
Like a grimoire.
Yeah, something like that. And it's like, I mean, I went into a house 5 or 6 years ago in a previous assignment, and this woman was concerned that she wanted me to bless the house, and she said the weird things were happening there, and then she wanted me to see this Bible, and I was like, okay, well, let me see. Well, she opens the Bible, and the Bible's hollowed out, and you can tell that something had been smuggled inside this Bible, and she didn't know where this came from or who it belonged to, and so I took that from her and burned it.
Whoa.
Because you'll find weird things like that, or I was mentioning yesterday when I came in from the airport, just last month, I was asked to go bless a house, a family. So I live in Natchez, Mississippi. It's about 2 hours north of New Orleans. Well, a family from New Orleans bought this old house, and they want to make it an Airbnb. When they were renovating it, they went into the basement, and they found this sort of secret room. It's under the front staircase of the house. And when you go in this room, I mean, there's a pentagram on the floor, and you have a table with a crystal ball in the middle, and there's animal bones on the walls, and there. So I took all of that and got rid of it all, and then they asked me, what should I do with this room? And I said, I don't think you do anything with this room. you leave it here. But yeah, so you're seeing that kind of thing now. And, and the thing is when people learn about it, right, they may not think it's cool, but they think it's interesting, right? And so people can get obsessive about it, and that will lead you down a path where now it's no longer just interesting. Now it does become cool, and
Have you
kind of thing.
have you witnessed people speaking languages they shouldn't know how to speak?
So I haven't witnessed a lot of phenomena myself. I've seen some things that I thought were weird enough that I wanted to let the bishop know about it, that kind of thing. Trying to think of a good example of something.
I've seen supernatural stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've experienced supernatural things, but when I was involved with this movie recently, someone had asked in an interview, they said, "Are you involved? Are you an exorcist yourself?" And I said, "My desire for that job is in the negatives, so I'm glad I'm not at that level, but I have priest friends that are." Right, so when they were calling me to be in the show, actually, one of the things I said is, it's usually hard to find a real exorcist because they don't like to talk about it, but I can talk about my friends' experiences, and so and I'm convinced this is a real thing, and I think it's something that people need to be aware of, but it's also not something I think people need to be actively afraid of or obsessive about.
I've heard that. Obviously, you said one of the things that they'll look for is something like some kind of supernatural ability or something like this, and there are stories. I believe they're more rare, but there are exorcists and witnesses who say they've seen weird things like levitation or things like that. Is that real?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of things like that. Most of the time, like I said, what I'm seeing is more of it's knowledge of something else. It's they have additional strength, or their voice is different. Things that could be identifiable as signs of a mental illness, but then when they're tested by a psychologist, the psychologist determines that there is no mental illness there. That kind of
I started thinking about this because in the past several years, like especially since COVID, there are people that I've known my whole life that it seems like within the span of a week, their personalities flipped. They speak differently, they behave differently, and they're behaving in ways I would describe as evil. And it's shocked me. And maybe, for those that are out there that are more secular, agnostic, atheist, or whatever, I don't know what you want to call it or how you explain it. I will literally say there are people that I've known my whole life that I consider to be really good friends that will send me a message being like, "How have you been? Haven't seen you in a while. Hit me up when you're back in town." And then a month later, it's sending me nasty, evil messages saying, "You're going to burn. I'll like, you deserve this. You're sick, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, that's just like a light description. There are things that people have done to me that have resulted in like legal action that I'm like, I don't understand how that's possible that a person would become that so quickly. Mm-hmm. And that freaks me out because aside from things like that, where you could easily explain, sometimes people go crazy. I don't know, they had a stroke. Who knows? I've also personally witnessed things that, and recently too, I would describe as physically possible, but defying what we would expect to be possible. I've not witnessed like a crystal manifest before my eyes out of thin air. Nothing like that. I have seen things that, they say in, I guess in quantum physics and mathematics, at some point, all of the oxygen in the room will be on one side. Although that's trillions upon trillions of years for that probability to happen. I have seen things that I can only describe as winning the lottery 5 times in a row. So it's possible for these things to happen, but it's almost unbelievable. And then considering what we've seen in this country with all the behavior, I think people are letting in some kind of demonic force or darkness that's influencing their behavior.
Well, I think it was kind of like what you were hitting on. It's kind of this soft occultism that we're seeing, where people are just incorporating these just rituals into their daily lives because they're trying to fill that void of spirituality.
Yeah.
And you even beyond the tarot cards, I mean, you're just getting like just weird stuff that people have not incorporated in their lives prior, like daily affirmations,
right?
Like Pilates and stuff like that. And it's like they're trying to fill this void, and I think that's heavily contributing.
Yeah, it's important to know like what demons can do and how they do it too, because demons possession isn't the only thing they do. There's vexation, obsession, oppression, and possession. Vexation is when demons are attached to objects and move objects around and affect our material world. Obsession is when they affect your mental health, basically, and put thoughts and things in your mind. Because demons' main thing, they're spiritual beings. They don't have a physical body, but they can manifest in physical places. And so their main thing is trying to tempt you and like push you into certain places, but they're not like Christ. So Christ can hear your interior life. So you can pray silently, and Christ and the saints in heaven can hear you through the power of Christ. But demons can't hear your interior life, but they can be inside of you and poke around and look at what you're up to, see how you're feeling. And of course, they're super intelligent beings that have a complete and total knowledge of everything because they're immaterial spirits that exist outside of time and space. And so just by watching how you're acting, they can kind of guess on what you're feeling and how to push you and tempt you. And so the idea is that they watch what you're doing and they try to like push you towards certain things. The more you sin, of course, in the Catholic Church, we believe the more you sin, the more sin darkens your intellect. So the more you sin, the dumber you get. The most evil thing you've ever done, that time you cheated on that girl you loved and you're like, who was that? I don't even know who I was. Why did I do that? Like, you literally don't know why you betrayed your friend or did some of the worst things you can imagine. That's sin darkening your intellect. That's you becoming basically drunk on stupidity from sin. And demons push you into that space. And the dumber you get, the easily they can manipulate you. And then they push you towards behaviors where you betray your friends weirdly or do crazy things.
Why?
Why did they do that?
Yeah.
The ruin of souls.
Yeah.
But what, like, is it to get you damned, to destroy God's creation?
The enemy is a punk, right? And I use that line a lot, right? So one, right, he's not a demigod. And I think you made a very good point here, right?
Yeah.
So Satan is not reading your thoughts, right? He's not like God.
Your
right?
interior life is unavailable to demons and Satan.
He's just extraordinarily observant, right? But he already knows that he's lost. And so what he does essentially, right, is he's trying, I guess, to lessen the weight of his defeat by trying to bring all these people down with him, you know, and that's why I say he's like a punk, right? It's the kid who lost the game, so he wants to ruin it for everyone else. That's
Misery loves company.
Yeah, that's the enemy.
Yeah. And then demons can affect your sensorium, so they can like affect the way you see things or whatever. And so that's why like, oh, what's that thing in the corner of my eye, or what's that creepy feeling? And then they push you towards that, and then they make you confused because sometimes you did just see a speck in the corner of your eye. Sometimes though, you're like, I know for a fact I just saw a guy in the corner of my eye and I feel like I'm not alone, like I'm creeped out. But they keep you unaware, scared, and confused. That's like the game. That's the shell game they play.
And the end result of all of this for the people who go down that path or influence, it's what, damnation or?
Yeah, I mean, if they're influenced, not that they're losing the life of grace, right, and that they're led into a sinful life, then yeah, I mean, that's his goal. But the enemy, right, he's crafty and he's a master of deceit. You know, a lot of times when we see situations of oppression and possession, the person who's actually experiencing this is not always the target, right? Sometimes the target is the priest who's involved, right? So I mentioned in the car on the way over here that we were listening to a recording of an exorcism recently. Some priests were, and in this particular instance, the priest was trying to ascertain the demon's purpose. And so he kept asking, you know, why are you here, that kind of thing. And the demons sort of began to repeat over and over again, well, if you get the priest, you get the mass. And if you get the mass, you get the souls, right? And there's so many souls. And so the goal here was to get at the priest, right? Because if you can get one person, then you get all of them, right? And the enemy's trying to maximize the amount of people he can get to sort of decrease his defeat. And so, yeah, so the end game ultimately, right, is the enemy wants all of us, right? And so he's going to go for the most influential person, right? He's going to go for the person to get the most people with him. He's not, going to look for the small victory, right? He's trying to look for the big one.
Is there like an opposite force? You know, people say angels and demons, but is there an opposite pressure towards goodness or?
Yeah, I mean, that's angelic intercession. Is the reverse of what demonic oppression or possession would be. So to pray to the saints in heaven or to have angels intercede on your behalf, God sends angels down to earth, assigns us guardian angels. So there are benevolent forces at work, but of course, we're humans that come to our salvation by many movements. So angels come to their salvation or damnation by one movement. God creates them. They have all the complete and total knowledge they'll ever need, but how they interpret that is up to their personality and them as an individual. So they make that choice immediately to love God by his power, by their own power. So angels can't sin the way we can because they don't have physical bodies. So the only sins they commit would be pride or envy. And so probably a combination of both. They make their decision. They fall away from God. They are living in sin, separated from God. Sin darkens the intellect. They become insane, which then makes them look crazy and behave crazy to us, Wow. And then, so the reverse of that is when, angels come and visit us, or you're feeling terrible and you have the distinct feeling a family member who loved you and could be in heaven is comforting you or sending you a message, in Christ allows them to do that. So that's the reverse of experiencing the demonic.
In order to exorcise someone, do they have to want to be exorcised?
I would say that's a good question. So exorcisms are what the church calls a sacramental. So I'm going to make this distinction in order to make this explanation. So there are 7 sacraments within the church, and the church teaches that the sacraments always are effective if they're done properly. Sacramentals are effective if someone is properly disposed to receive them. Right. So I would argue that the person being exorcised, that they interiorly are desiring holiness and sanctity, and they're desiring deliverance, even if the forces that are also within them are not. Right. Obviously, the enemy doesn't want that to happen. But it's not a case of I'm going to strap someone down and exercise them, that kind of thing. It's not going to work. You could do that with baptism. You shouldn't. Right? Baptism would be effective because God is the one who's acting here. But in sacramentals, the Lord is acting through us, but upon the grace of our dispensation, our disposition. So yeah, that's I never thought about that, but I guess that would be the answer.
The reason I ask is we were talking about this last night. I mentioned it briefly before the show. What would it look like if you tried to exorcise by force? And I don't mean physically restraining someone. I mean like trying to bless or drive out demons from, say, some raging liberal at a protest. Mm-hmm. It would look like the movie The Exorcism.
One of the ways correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've heard from priest friends 2 very interesting things. One, that one of the ways you can find out if someone is possessed is by hiding the Holy Eucharist on you, or bringing a very holy object or relic near them without telling them, and they have a physical or odd reaction to it. So if you put like the Eucharist in your pocket and went and walked around a protest and you were trying to be normal, but people were like hissing at you or trying to attack you, that might be an indicator. Yeah.
Is that not in any way like sacrilegious or blasphemous to do?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't carry the.
Yeah, you can't just. I don't know how you would get it.
Wouldn't do that. I did see a video actually on Instagram just last week. It was a woman in Russia was in a church, and she was brought in contact with a relic, and just immediately she was having a vehement physical reaction to this. So that sort of thing. We do see it. Funny enough, I can tell a story on the flip side. An exorcist told me one way he can tell if someone's faking it, because that also happens sometimes, is he has a copy of Green Eggs and Ham written in Latin, and he'll begin reading it and see how they react, and if they're reacting viscerally, he's like,
nice. How do you write Green Eggs and Ham?
That's incredible.
Well, because you see these videos on Instagram a lot, specifically out of like Africa, and there'll be a guy just go, "Boah, boah," and then people are flying backwards and that sort of thing, and you see that, and you're like, something's missing here. There's a little bit of performativeness to this.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, that's like overly performative or whatever. The other interesting thing a priest friend had told me, and I've heard from other priests, and again, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn, but is that it's actually a spiritual gift to come in contact with a demon or the devil in the long term, because you are having a situation where you're confronting evil directly and experiencing it in such a way that it galvanizes your faith forever. Whereas, like, that's why people who reject God or whatever, like, I've never seen a ghost. I want to see it. I want to have an experience, but I just can't have one. Why would the devil do anything to you? He already won. You're gone. He doesn't need you. He's not going to galvanize your faith. He's not going to make you feel like things are real. He's going to leave you in your lane to keep sinning.
And the enemy also he doesn't want his presence to be known.
Exactly.
Because that foils his plan, right? So, he's not going to go around and have people start doing things that are going to, allow him to, be manifest to someone, right? I mean, he wants to hide that.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of what we would describe as like default liberals, normies, I'll call them normies because they don't necessarily have to be just liberal, but if they so let's say someone is living in sin, they're doing things that are driving them towards a darkness. I think there's a good amount of people that if they actually saw the demon manifest before their eyes, they'd turn around immediately. I think deception is required to push people towards darkness because I think people actually understand that if a demon is trying to entice you to do bad things, it's going to be bad for you. And so there's a deception in, no, what you're doing is good. You're the good guy. Trust me, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, you also like I used to practice a type of magic, and I was like a member of the Temple of Satan or whatever, and you tell yourself, well, it's aesthetic. Nah, this is like a cringe, funny, heavy metal looking organization that does political activism. I'm not engaging in real Satanism. And then you're doing like weird magic stuff because girls think it's cool or whatever. And you're like, well, it's like goofy. Well, maybe if it works, who knows? And then you're like, well, if the secret works, this will work. It's like harmless. And then you're experiencing like you're, trying to go pee at night and you're like, overcome with a complete and total sense of dread, like there's something waiting for you on the other side of the door. Have you ever, when you're a kid and you're so scared that you're like, this is happening to me, this is real, I'm the most terrified I've ever been, blanket over your head. Like, of course, to have that feeling as an adult is like indicative of like something real's happening to me, but you just explain it away the same way, like, because it's just what we're designed to do. You're just like, I'm just being weird. This isn't really happening.
One of the things that's crazy to me is that there are endless stories from humans about supernatural phenomenon in a variety of fashions. It's not always just about like exorcism or whatever, but there are people who explain, I've witnessed this thing, and yet it is still in the mainstream. We don't believe any of it. That's not true.
Yeah,
because you never experienced it. It's funny because when you think about how scientists will explain oxidization process through hemoglobin or whatever in your body, you're like, that's correct. Because everyone tells you it's correct. But then when you have people all tell you stories of, I have witnessed something, we are basically meant to believe that can't be true. We ignore it. And that seems weird. It's illogical.
Yeah, well, so at first I would say that there's so much about the world we don't know. Like, for instance, we we don't even understand like why we yawn fully, right? We don't. Yeah, right. So, but the response I would give to that is, okay, first, so people could ask the question, for instance, why doesn't God just manifest himself over the whole world and everyone, like announce through a trumpet that he's God and everyone will believe in him? Well, one, God desires that we have free will because he desires us to love him, right? Not just to accept and believe in him and fear him, right? He wants us to love him. And if you're going to love someone, you have to love them freely, right? You can't, go up to the girl you like and put a gun to her and say, love me, right? And she's not going to actually love you, even if she says it, right? So in order for us to authentically choose God, we have to have the ability to choose other than God as well, right? We have to have that complete freedom, right? So God permits evil to exist ultimately so that we have the ability to choose him freely. Right, so these manifestations, right? Sometimes there's a reason for it. That this person, they need the effect of this grace, or they need the experience of this to prevent them from making some decision down the road, or whatever it is in God's providence. But for the overwhelming majority of us, we just need to have normal lives and have the experience of learning to pray and learning, the teachings of the church or whatever it is, and that will be enough for us to have the ability to make that decision.
It feels like. Recently, good is winning. However, I'm curious as to why, I went to, where was I? Shepherdstown or whatever. They have a church up there with the Progress Pride flag. And so this is not just the gay rights flag. It's got the weird colors on it. It's got the fist and all of that. This is not a church that's going to teach you good morals or biblical values. It's going to espouse degeneracy. How does this happen? How does the church actually succumb to this itself? So widespread.
So, I mean, I can't speak to what, other groups are doing.
It's not a Catholic church, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons, I mean, obviously, right, I mean, there are Catholics who are going to individually believe these sort of things, but one of the reasons I am Catholic is because the teaching of the church, right, is one, we can't change the church's teachings, right? We don't have the authority to change the church's teachings because they belong to God. And so even if this individual person is espousing this belief, right, and there are people within the Catholic Church that do, that's not the teachings of the church, right? You can't change that. And that's, like I said, I appreciate the firm foundation of that. Now, to kind of speak more to your question, I think especially in the United States, we are seeing, I think, within the culture overall, a sort of return to traditional values and that kind of thing, especially among young people. But I also think that sort of liberalism in itself is becoming a religion, essentially. And so why is it affecting the church? Well, because we are treating it, as a religion. Abortion is becoming like the liberal sacrament in some way, right? And so so it's taking this sort of religious, this cultic approach to it.
Abortion and the most prolific demon in human history, it relishes in human child sacrifice.
Yeah.
So that's pretty.
Which one is that?
Moloch.
I thought that was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, he was so prolific in during the Peloponnesian Wars when the Romans got down to Carthage or whatever, and they saw what they were up to. It was so disgusting to even the pagan Romans that they obliterated their society forever.
Wow.
So that no one would ever even know about what they were up to. We don't even know like what languages they spoke entirely. Like they obliterated them. That's how appalled they were at what they found they were doing for demons. But yeah, it's a crazy thought.
So there are specific named known demons.
Yeah, I mean, so whenever an exorcist performs an exorcism, one of the things that he's meant to do is ascertain the name of the demon. Names have a power, right? I preached about this last week during one of our daily masses, but I give an example, right? You say you're in love with a girl and you hear your name in her voice, right? That has more power than someone else saying your name, right? So having the identity of the demon also tells us a little bit about who this demon is or why they're acting. So yes, that'll be an example.
So I think a lot of people are familiar with Moloch.
Yeah.
There was like, what weren't they going like the Bohemian Grove and worshiping a giant Moloch statue, or what was that?
Yeah. He's that one. And if you look, Hillary Clinton also sacrifices a chicken to Moloch in one of her emails. That's confirmed. You can look it up. I'm not joking. Look it up. She says, I'll sacrifice a chicken to Moloch for you.
Is she joking? Or
no, I don't know what the joke would be.
Lord.
That's crazy. Yeah, look it up. It's wild. Unless I'm on some conspiracy theory stuff, but I'm pretty sure it was real.
Tom Brady's wife supposedly would put these sort of Wiccan altars together in the club level of games whenever he would play. And I remember when he played in New Orleans, one of my friends who works with the Saints, he's a Catholic priest down there, he's like, I felt like I needed to go through the whole Superdome afterwards and bless the whole building because she had been there.
I don't know how to find this.
But as far as like demons with names, demons are also of different orders of power the same way angels are. So angels are more or less powerful. And of course, heaven is organized in a hierarchy because that's how God works. And everyone in the hierarchy serves the people below them because to have power and to be in charge is to serve. That's like the good. And the reverse of that is to dominate. And so evil people who are in charge, they dominate as opposed to what a benevolent king should do, which is to serve. So there are different angels of different ranges of power in order of magnitudes or whatever. And some of the demons are fallen angels who are more or less powerful. And there's like conjecture that Satan was a throne, one of the most powerful choirs of angels, which again makes it so funny that he was smited by Michael, who was of an archangel, which is the second rank, but not supposedly as powerful as Satan, but stepped up to him and was like, "Bring it on, big boy."
So continuing the topic of the names, real quick, so the names of angels tell a bit about their power, right? So Michael means who is like God, right? And he's defending the person of God, right? So the name Lucifer, right, with light bearer, the idea that Satan's original task, right, was to be the one to bear light and truth, right? And so he's doing the total opposite, right? It's darkness and lies and falsity.
So it wasn't Hillary Clinton. It was the email we have from WikiLeaks. I got it pulled up right here. It's Louis Amsalem, who wrote, "With fingers crossed, the old rabbit's foot out of the box in the attic, I will be sacrificing a chicken in the backyard to Moloch."
Who did he send that to?
Well, the headers.
Yuma Abedin?
From H.
So
Yeah,
this is...
I thought this was one of Hillary's leaked
look,
emails.
it says from Anselm.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a forwarded email, I guess. Unless it's talking... the email talks about Secretary Clinton. I doubt.
Okay, yeah.
So apparently...
Was it sent to her? It's so strange. Even the fact that someone is sending emails from a government account saying that they're sacrificing chickens to demons, probably not great.
Right.
No.
I would like 0 political people in America to be doing any sort of demon worship.
Yeah, that's ideal.
Yeah.
What, they're 1 degree separated? That's supposed to make me feel better?
Yeah.
I'm gonna read this because I think the context is interesting and important, so we can understand. Some people are going to dismiss it. He was joking, right? He was joking. Here's the email.
Okay.
It says, Beale called a little after 1:30 p.m. to say a meeting with the de facto envoys had been abruptly canceled, but for perhaps a positive reason. Micheletti has asked about half the team to return to Tegucigalpa. I don't know how to pronounce that. Corrales stayed. Okay, I'm not going to read through this, but you get the point. It seems very straightforward. The envoys seemed confident they would get M to sign the SJ Accord. Skipping overhead. Just before speaking to me, Beale had spoken with Arias, who expressed cautious optimism that we might have a breakthrough. Arias told Beale to tell us that if that happens, the United States gets more credit. Arias said the U.S. has played the game exactly right with the approximate mix of carrot sticks, toughness, and unified message, even-handedness, and above all, good timing. Once again, this seems like a very straightforward, boring political email. Beale said was extremely complimentary of the great political instincts shown by Secretary Clinton. With fingers crossed, the old rabbit's foot out of the box in the attic, I will be sacrificing a chicken in the backyard to Moloch. I think what the response is going to be is he's saying we want to get these accords signed, and I'm doing literally every superstitious thing I can to make sure it happens.
It's just really wild that the superstitious thing he picked was an accurate use of magic to a demon.
Yeah.
Why do you know how to do magic for a demon?
Right.
Why? The rabbit's foot out of the box inside of the attic is a very specific thing.
But fingers crossed is a Christian symbol, isn't it? Like crossing your fingers is to make a cross with your body.
Superstition is a sin.
Yeah.
So you don't need superstition. You got Jesus, baby.
And even the rabbit's foot, it's like, okay, that's funny, haha. And then he's oh, and then I don't know, sacrifice a chicken to Moloch. You're like, whoa, dude, that escalated really quick.
I mean, it also is kind of inappropriate for a work email to be I'm not gonna go ahead and say I think this is evidence the guy's actually doing it.
Right.
But I would say to somebody who was emailing jokes like that, let's be real. I'm not going to go to someone and say, hey, don't put these weird jokes in there. But if it was a common thing, I'd be like, it's probably not appropriate for work to be making jokes like this when we're talking about political accords.
I would be like, I need to come to your house and see what your chicken situation is actually before I keep getting these emails.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about Honduras, I guess.
Yeah.
But the thing
Did that work out? Do we know?
I don't know. This is from 2009. What a weird thing. So here's the other thing: the cremation of care. Talking about the Bohemian Grove. Apparently, people have gone there and secretly filmed it, and what they say is it's not explicitly that they're worshiping Moloch. They're doing a performance to a Moloch-like deity, but it's all just very weird when you find out that powerful, wealthy people go into the middle of the woods and put on robes and do this kind of weird ceremony. Mm-hmm. And the response you get, the first thing that they said was, this isn't true, it's made up, it's fake, it's a conspiracy theory. And then once the internet started to become a bit more ubiquitous and everybody had access to the videos and the articles, and we knew they actually were going to the Bohemian Grove and doing these kind of rituals, they said, it's a performance. It's like a country club where we do a gag theater show. And it's like, yes, that's still very weird because regular Americans don't do those things.
Yeah.
It is a strange kind of thing to do.
So one of the things that I have to look for, so I don't live in New Orleans, but I live near New Orleans, and so that sort of culture and sort of Haitian and voodoo culture affects the area I live in. But one of the things I have to look for as a priest is when I'm distributing Holy Communion at Mass, right, I have to watch with my peripheral vision to make sure people are actually receiving the host if they're consuming it, because people will want to steal the most blessed sacrament, right, the host, for use in these acts of worship, sort of demonic activity, and it's happened before where I've noticed a man had taken a host and he pocketed it. And so I went after him and got the host from him and consumed it. And then afterwards to go in the park behind the church and see this altar he had erected where he intended to do this ritual. Just this past year, I don't want to say where to protect the identity, but a priest I know that is involved on campus ministry at a major state university discovered that the pledges in a fraternity were told to steal host from the Catholic Church.
Oh, that's crazy. I saw someone try and steal the host on Christmas last year. Mm-hmm. So our priest had to physically stop him from doing it. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So on Christmas, of all times, at the midnight mass.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I asked ChatGPT about known demons, and in Christian and Jewish demonology, you've got Lucifer, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, Belial. Is that how you pronounce that?
Belial.
Mammon, Leviathan, Baal, and Astaroth. Mm-hmm. In modern culture, Beelzebub just means the devil. Is this is a different, separate demon?
Yeah. So in the rite of exorcism, a lot of these names are listed sometimes because the priest is told to specifically, command that these demons depart if they're present, that kind of thing. Sometimes we can say that, perhaps sometimes they're used in a term like Leviathan could refer to Lucifer, but it also may be a separate entity and that sort of thing.
People use Leviathan to reference Lucifer. I didn't know that.
Demons also are the whole we are legion, they speak in sort of, a way that intermixes all of them as one being in a mockery of God. That's kind of their whole deal.
It's a mockery of the Trinity.
Yeah. Everything they do is like an inversion. Like that's why so much magic has to do with sex, because sex is supposed to be a part of the sacrament where you selflessly give yourself to another. And when you do that, you're open to creating life together. Whereas magic is using another for yourself in a way that benefits only you and is not open to life in any way. So that's like, it's always a direct mockery of.
What about these other demons? It mentions Pazuzu, Mesopotamian, Near Eastern, Lamashtu. Are you familiar with any of those?
So I'm not familiar with the names themselves, but I mean, Scripture tells us that any of the pagan gods are essentially demons, right?
Yeah.
So if we're looking at Mesopotamian gods, and that's
pagan gods aren't necessarily demons. A lot of pagan gods are just fake stories of people seeking God. But anytime pagans interact directly with a god, that is demonic entity.
And what does it cause, right? So I mentioned I'm in Natchez, Mississippi, right? So the Natchez Indians, who are nearly extinct right now, it's sad, but the Natchez Indians were a extraordinarily gruesome people. And they're one of the only groups in the United States, only Native American groups in the United States that offered human sacrifice. And so that in itself, right, to find a culture that's offering human sacrifice, well, we could say there's demonic influence right there. They even had the practice of if the chief died, they would kill the chief's entire family so that his family would be with him in the afterlife, right? But that's heavily influenced, right? That's the demonic in many ways, we could say.
It mentions it says other cultural figures. Moloch, child sacrifice, fire, and war. Is Moloch not a Christian known demon, or is?
No, he is. He's well known in the canon. So he's the child sacrifice guy. Yeah. And so
seems very powerful these days,
Yeah, anytime they would mess up, so what they would do is they would make brass statues of him. He's a human body with a bull's head, and then they would heat the brass statue and put the children while they were still alive and let them slowly roast in his brass hands. And they would scream and they would do rituals. The Romans witnessed this. The Jews witnessed this. I think the Samaritans, there were other people who recorded it. So this is a common thing that goes on for not just like one generation or something, but over the course of hundreds of years in different cultures.
Well, we got on this topic, right, because we were mentioning abortion. Peter Kreeft, who's a Catholic theologian and canon lawyer, he has a quote where he says that abortion is the demonic parody of the Eucharist, right?
Yeah.
And it uses the same words with a blasphemous other meaning, right? This is my body, right? And so, you can see how Moloch would tie into all of this idea of sacrificing human children, right? they're what are they being sacrificed for? Well, they're being sacrificed ultimately for our individual pleasure.
Yeah. Christ, this is my body given up for you. And then abortion, this is your body given up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is Odin a demon?
No, he's just a fake guy.
Yeah, fake God.
He's just a pretty cool character.
Yeah.
What's the difference between these like ancient, like the mythologies and these pagan religions? Like, how do you differentiate what's fake and what's actually demonic?
So Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, very interestingly, C.S. Lewis converted because of pagan myths. He was really moved by man's search for God in the pagan myths and thought they were really beautiful and interesting, and he studied them. And Tolkien pointed out to him that all the myths point towards one truth, the true myth. That Christ is a mythology, but it's true, and that's what makes it unique. C.S. Lewis converts and becomes one of the greatest Christian theologians of the modern age. But some of these things are just people seeking God and creating religion and trying to understand what we all intuitively know. Before the 2010s or whatever, when we started to go down this weird path we're all down, normalcy was a thing we all agreed on. We said things were normal. We used the word normal. And what was normal is we all intuitively know there's something going on, right? Ghosts, spirits, the feeling of God, whatever. So Odin is people seeking God and just sort of creating their own myths and figuring it out and creating myths in order to seek him. But Odin doesn't there are no people who have Odin come down and do things for them. They don't interact with him.
I thought that's the story, that Odin makes himself known to people, makes himself visible to people. And when you mentioned when these pagan people actually have an interaction with God, that's demons. So that's Odin came to mind, because that's the stories. He comes and makes himself visible and known to be he hides amongst the people.
In the Eddas, he comes and visits people and stuff for sure. And in all the pagan gods visit people. That's one of their things, is who is a god and who's not. But demons are beings that you interact with in order to achieve a material goal in this space-time reality. So Odin was what you thought was God, and he's like a story, but he's not like anyone people are trying to get material things from currently. Whereas Moloch, for all of time, was like, I am a creature, I want you to do X for me, and then you will get Y. Whereas Odin was like, I am this almighty sort of father figure, and I have wisdom, and people were interested in that, or he's a metaphor for all these other things,
Do demons cut deals with people? Because there's you mentioned vexation, obsession, possession. Mm-hmm. Typically, my understanding, which is limited, is they don't realize they're being influenced by some dark force to do bad things. But are there also instances where the demon whispers to you, I will give you this if you do this thing? Well, I guess the Faustian deals or whatever.
I mean, you can't sell your soul. It's not yours to give away. Yeah. So I can't remember what saint it is that talked about a man who had sold his soul and he's being drugged down to hell, and the angels are like, literally just say no. What are you doing? Say no. And he fell into despair so that he thought he could not be saved because he thought he had sold his soul. The demons had thrown him into such a depression that they convinced him to take him. But the angels were like, literally walk it off. What are you talking about? You're fine, but that's kind of what they do.
I was talking with a handful of people a couple years ago about DMT trips. You guys ever looked into dimethyltryptamine? And
I have some friends who were burners and stuff, so I'm pretty well versed in their stories.
And there's this occult view of what powerful people are doing. They've been doing they're calling it extended state DMT trips. These experiments have been going on for a few years, where they hook people up to an IV and pump small amounts of DMT over a long period of time to create a prolonged DMT trip. So the way people describe it, I've never done it. I just listen to podcasts, right? So what do I know? But they describe it as blasting off or breaking through. Some people describe it as breaking through the veil to the other side, like pressing your face through the screen and you can see a bit. They describe entities on the other side that they experience, machine elves or otherwise. And I was talking to this dude who's very, very Christian. I'm not sure what denomination, probably Protestant. And he was saying that these entities that people are experiencing, they're demons, and they're offering up deals. They're telling you to become corrupted. They don't say do bad thing. They're saying, yeah, do this. Come on, do this. And in many instances, they'll offer you knowledge or power in exchange for working with them or abiding by their will and things like this. And he was just saying, never accept the deal when you hear the whispers. However, there is one of the conspiracy theories is that powerful elites do this intentionally, take these deals, and are granted knowledge, like you were saying, things they shouldn't know, and they use this to empower themselves and gain control over other people. It's interesting when you say that with possession, one of the things you look for is people knowing things they shouldn't. And then you have in this other area stories about entities from beyond the veil when you take this drug that will offer you up information you should not know, which will grant you more power in the material world, such as like what stock to buy, what company to invest in, where to find certain things. To me, that all sounds very much the same, just described in different ways.
Yeah, well, there is a culture within the drug market, like the cartel, for instance. So I was mentioning this earlier this morning, there's within Latin American culture, there's this weird and inappropriate relationship of sort of Christianity and paganism that intertwines, and you start to see these sort of these death cults that enter into it. You start to see a lot of sort of paganistic and witchcraft stuff enter into it. Well, either way, within the cartel, you hear stories of things like witches cursing loads of drugs with the intention that people become addicted to them and right, and therefore fall further into that, right? And then when you're under the influence of drugs, you're more, your reason is more affected, and so you're more probable to commit sin, right? So obviously it benefits the enemy as well. But yeah, so you like I said, you see that within the drug culture. I can't talk about this particularly, but
I think you should read a little bit, because I'm wondering if, one way I describe it is I grew up Catholic, left the church after my family, we switched schools and things like this, but I had a general understanding with religious class, we called it, and going to mass.
So you're baptized Catholic?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're still Catholic, you just don't realize it.
All right, okay. I went through, I had communion, I never had confirmation. Okay. But when I started reading, so I had this period from probably like 13 till 18 where I was like, I'm an atheist. Okay. And that's what people told me. And then, I don't know what I would describe myself as now, but I do believe in God. I just don't follow any particular faith structure. But when I started reading about quantum physics and theory, that's actually part of what made me move back towards believing in God is that what I had learned reading as a kid that was never accurately explained to me, and then reading this science and realizing that there was some connection there and that people may just be looking at something but from different angles. I was like, oh, God is real. And I think God is observable. I won't get into my whole theory and breakdown of all that because it takes forever, and I've done it several times. But I do believe that God is observable in reality. We can see signs of God. I think you probably agree. And I've met people who think that's not true, and I think they're just they need information. So I'm curious when I hear about all of this DMT stuff, which is wildly popular. Everyone loves it. Joe Rogan talks about, or he used to talk about it all the time, and everybody was like, "Whoa." It seems like there's something to it. And I would describe it as there are signs all around us, such as with science, about unseen forces, like I was describing with the electromagnetic spectrum. Forever, humans had no idea it existed because we can't perceive it. And then one day somebody was like, hey, this weird thing is happening to this metal when I do something like this. There's something interacting with it. Now we have cell phones. Now we have satellites. Now wireless technology, we get it. We have X-ray detection. We have even magnetism. So it should be patently obvious to any human being that understands these discoveries. We probably haven't discovered everything. There are unseen forces that exist all around us. So there's something interesting with the DMT stuff that I'm getting to. People have all of these stories of experiencing the same thing, the same entities, and shared knowledge, which is one of the reasons why I think people are so interested in dimethyltryptamine, because it makes people feel like there may be real evidence of something beyond that we can't perceive as humans. There's a famous story that Vice published a while ago where a man said he did DMT, large dose, blasted off, found himself in this strange reality where he met a purple woman. This woman told him things. when he comes back down, he was talking to one of his other trippy friends, and his friend told him about a purple woman he had met who told him these things. And that's when the guy said, wait, what? I was told the exact same things from the exact same person. And it's something like that. There are so many stories where people who have shared trips, they'll go in separate rooms, they do experiments with this, and they'll take DMT, and then these two people will report knowledge that that no one shared with each other. And so I look at this and I wonder if humans are starting to touch upon these demonic entities. They're being able to visualize and describe something that is tangible that I presume the church has known about for millennia, but now through DMT, science is actually saying maybe these things actually are real and we can actually document their existence.
There's an odd this is like getting into the realm of like kooky quackery outside of religion. We're like, what? But there are UFO investigators who have done research into it, and they're trying to figure out like, okay, every time someone's abducted, I'm going to interview everyone who's abducted, and I'm going to see if there's anyone who's interrupted an abduction experience, if that's ever happened. Because abduction experiences, they tend to happen from beginning to end, and the creatures who abduct these people and the people who say they have these experiences, they describe them from beginning to end. They're powerless. So UFO researchers are like, who has ever interrupted one? That's interesting, right? Let's think about that. So he starts to look through it, and he finds that there are people who have interrupted these experiences, these abduction experiences, and universally all of them interrupted them by calling upon the name of Jesus.
Oh, wow.
So the UFO community got really weird about this, which is hilarious that dorks who are like, UFOs are real, and then a guy's like, I think Jesus is involved, and they're like, get this loser out of here. So they kind of buried these people, and you can look it up, and they've tried to like speak out against it, whatever. But one of the interesting things about DMT is the universal experience with alien grays. Almost everyone who does DMT has an experience with what they described as like an alien that as described by people who have seen them. So they're like, oh, it's like a skinny type of alien, like an ET, like a, oh man, I'm making Alex Jones unproud. I forget what the name of the aliens are with the
machine elves.
The grays.
Well, the grays are the grays. The machine elves are different.
Okay, I'm not
mechanical beings.
Yeah, I'm not well versed enough. But anyway, so people universally from different cultures who don't even know see these aliens. So it's interesting that they're witnessing aliens, and then there's these other people who are like, well, aliens might have something to do with the demonic because apparently the name of Christ is the only thing that interrupts an abduction experience.
Alex Jones has talked about this, that, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he's mentioned interdimensional entities.
Yes.
And it's fascinating because a lot of people will actually just say, we've heard this, and people will chat us all the time saying, what people think of as aliens are demons.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that it's like we lost the knowledge. These things have been described and explained by humans for millennia. And now today, because of the rise of secularism and the stepping away of religion, people don't know what they're talking about. I'm not saying they're in ignorance. I'm saying they will see an entity and then say, that's an alien, even though it's been described for millennia as a demon. One thing I find truly fascinating in a much more, like, for those that, don't believe and let's bring it back to Earth for you guys a little bit.
Yeah.
Simulation theory.
Yeah.
You guys are familiar with simulation theory.
Yes.
So this is very popular among the tech elite and I guess atheists to a certain degree, not everyone, but there are many that are entertaining the possibility that the universe we exist in was a simulation created by a more advanced civilization. The fascinating thing about that is what they're basically saying is that a higher power planned the creation of this universe for which we exist in for a purpose. And I'm just going to stop you right there. Mm-hmm. You've basically... I was talking to someone about simulation theory, and I said, I recommend you talk to some theologians, priests, and learned holy men. Because when you discuss simulation theory, that's like chapter 1 of my religion book when I was 5 years old.
Yeah, it is silly to be like, God couldn't do it, but Gabe Newell could. Like, yeah, get out of here, dude. That's not real.
And so I wonder, just going back to, so what we have here is I looked up common reports of demonic entities with DMT, and it's machine elves. I've had people describe them as like slinky-like beings, I don't know if you guys have heard that. I don't know. I've never done DMT. I've never done drugs, actually. And they describe them as like they have like this wavy, slinky-like structure. But it also mentions commonly shadow figures and demonic shapes in some cases, especially with fear or anxiety. The beings are hostile or terrifying, described as demons or dark gods. And it mentions a religious overlap with ayahuasca ceremonies where people sometimes believe they encounter spirits, angels, demons. I wonder if humans have actually known this for thousands of years. There are learned religious holy men who talk about beings that exist beyond. They don't have a form. And just like with simulation theory, people are scratching the surface of religion 101 in trying to describe what they're seeing. I wonder if we would benefit greatly from these hippy-dippy DMT people actually just going and talking to a priest for a little bit and finding that what they're describing may actually already be written down for thousands of years. Yeah. There's knowledge to be found, I think.
There's the movie that I just assisted with, to The Ritual. There's a great line that Al Pacino's character has in it. So he plays the exorcist in the movie, and he's arguing with another priest that's struggling to believe that this is real. And he says, Father, the enemy's ways may be new to you, but they're ancient. He's been doing this for thousands of years, and you're right? So the church talks about, if you look out over human culture, right? So one of the things I do in my field is ritual and liturgy. So I study a lot of paganistic rituals and that kind of thing, and you'll find similarities, right, from culture to culture, of similar beliefs, similar religious practices. And so the church says, we call this the vestigia trinitatis, that there's vestiges of the Trinity all through the culture, because ultimately there's only one truth, right? And so when people discover truth, they're touching upon the one truth, who's God himself. And so when we discover these truths in these cultures, it's because ultimately, right, they're finally touching the truth. And so, I would say, if you can look over thousands, millions of years of human history, and all of a sudden you keep finding the same thing popping up again and again and again and again, there has to be something true behind it. And we in the 21st century aren't just totally, oh, this is brand new. No, right? We're not just discovering this. This has been here for a long time.
One of the things that irks me with these like ghost hunter shows is that they're completely unserious. And I think that we should be pursuing, when people experience what would be described as supernatural phenomenon, a legitimate scientific exploration of this information. Instead, what you get is EMF detectors and like microphones to make weird recordings, and that's just some made up stuff. That's not actually the scientific method or process.
My mother is into ghost hunting, or was, and I went with her. I actually have an entire album about it. But we had like a supernatural experience, but the equipment is insane.
Yeah,
they just have like an Xbox Connect duct taped to their head, and they're like, "I'm doing science right now," and you're like, "I don't think you are, though. I think you have a very old game system taped to your face, actually." And they have lasers and like all kinds of weird stuff, and it's built by who knows who, and the science is shoddy, but some of it does seem to like do something.
I think a lot. I was reading once that a lot of this phenomenon we experience can be explained by ultra low frequency vibration, which creates like a sensation within your body. You can't hear it or perceive it. Possible. I just find it fascinating that there are so many stories of people experiencing some kind of supernatural phenomenon, and it is dismissed by the mainstream. I actually will take that back. I don't think it is. I think people are scared to admit it, but obviously the fact that ghost hunter shows exist, the fact that the DMT question is so popular, suggests that regular people do accept there are forces out there that we can't perceive that influence us, either physically or mentally or emotionally. But for some reason, on the surface, nobody wants to admit it. Most people don't want to admit it.
Yeah. Like I remember when Tucker Carlson said that he was attacked by a demon in his sleep. The reaction wasn't like mockery. Most people were just like, "Oh, yeah, tell me more." Like, And people subliminally are very aware of these things, and they're not ready to go all in on mocking. Oftentimes, they're just like, "Wait, what'd you say again?" Yeah, More, please.
Yeah, even for all I converted. So I used to be a major leftist. I had a show on Gas Digital with Corinne Fisher where I pushed leftist politics and stuff, and I quit that and converted. And of course, I had like tens of thousands of people be like, "We're gonna kill you over this now," and death threats and all the
apostate,
all the wildest things you can imagine. But over the course of time, when I would tell people I was religious, I would expect a lot of pushback from the stranger parts of my religion, but those are the parts that people are the most receptive to. Yeah. When I tell people like, "Oh yeah, dude, spiritual warfare, I feel like I'm going through it," like regular people will be like, should I throw some sage down?" Like they think that they're like, people are like, "Yeah, to be Christian is weird and bad, but attacked by demons, yeah, I get that." You're like, "What?"
Yeah.
So we live in like this very spiritual society that's trying to like discern this thing we all intuitively know is true, but they've totally thrown off the tradition that got us to where we are in this spiritual world.
That's like what I'm saying with the simulation theory stuff. We were having a discussion with someone about this, and I'm just like, you're describing the first thing they taught us in religion class when I was a little kid. And these big tech guys think they've discovered something profound to say we're in a simulation. And my response is, could you call it a construct instead of a simulation?
Right.
And they're like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, a simulation implies it's a copy of, and you don't know that. You're arguing that we exist in a construct. Yes. So did God construct the universe that we are in? And then it's, oh, maybe people already conceptualized this a very, very, very long time ago, and we all actually believed it. But maybe what's happening is we are being convinced to not believe it by dark forces. We are being told to disregard that which we know is true. And exactly as you described it, I can't tell you how many people I know are like, "I'm going to burn sage." And I'm like, what does that do? Scares the demons away. And I'm like,
why? Why?
Well, we've reached a point in our culture where truth itself doesn't exist, right? We're going to constantly question truth, right? And what is the enemy's goal, right? So God is order, right? And everything in creation is ordered, and it's mathematical and scientific, right? The enemy is the opposite, right? He wants just complete chaos. And so in the enemy's mind, right, now we live in a culture that reflects just his head, right? So it's weird to believe that marriage can be between a man and a woman, but let me go show you my crystal collection. And that's
literally,
and that's where we are.
And when they explain to you what each crystal does.
Yes.
I went. There's a rock shop in Frederick where we're huge fans, and just because I don't think there's magic power or anything within the rocks. I think there's various rocks are cool. It's science. They show you how they break the geodes open, and so whenever I go there,
for autism reasons, not magic reasons.
Exactly. Cool. And then I've got some friends that are like, "Don't buy that one," and I'm like, "Why not?" "Ooh, that one summons demons," and I'm just like, I don't know, dude. I just think this is a cool green rock. I don't know what you're talking about.
I had a woman recently, and she's from a very strong Catholic family, and God bless this. I mean, she's, probably in her mid-20s or whatever, and she was like, "Father, I want to show you this crystal I just bought." But she's like, "But I don't really believe crystals have magic powers or this kind of thing. But I mean, don't you think that maybe like it's so old, maybe it does have some sort of use or anything?" And finally I questioned her, I was like, "Why do you need this?" And she's like, "Well, I don't really know." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going to take it."
Lost crystal privileges.
There was a meteorite fragment crystal, and I was buying it, and my buddy told me that to keep it away from me while I sleep because it'll summon demons to me while I sleep.
From outer space?
Yeah.
That not the demons are from outer space.
Oh, okay.
The rock is unworldly, and that it is unsafe because it will bring demons to you. And I've not experienced it. I don't know. Maybe I reject demons or whatever, so they have a harder time dealing with me. But
again, I think, like I said, that's symptomatic of a culture we live in where we've inverted truth, right? So. But what I do think you see right now, and I'm seeing this in the church, is the younger generation, it's becoming more traditional, more conservative, and that sort of thing, because we've reached a point where tradition and conservatism is the rebellion.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
It's a weird pendulum swing.
We redefined love, which is like the main symptom of most of society's ills, whereas love is to will the good of the other. And to will the good of the other means not to tolerate them in their evil, or to lie to them, or to allow them to fall into disrepair. It means to do difficult things. To love someone is to will their good, which isn't necessarily to be nice to them, but we've redefined love as to tolerate and be nice to, and accept no matter what. I guess we took unconditional love and really ran with it. And we forgot we're humans and things are very conditional for us.
Yeah.
Oh, Benedict XVI has this great line where he says, "There is no love without truth."
Yes.
And so when we're denying people the truth, we're not really loving them. We're allowing them to persist in their error.
Exactly.
Right, which ultimately leads to their downfall.
So I asked ChatGPT, does every culture believe in some kind of possession? Yes. Nearly every culture on the planet. I looked this up because I asked it about jinn. Mm-hmm. Are you guys familiar with jinn?
Yeah.
It's very, very similar to demons in Arabic culture, and it even says here they can possess humans, causing illness, madness, temptation. They are very much demonic. I believe it even refers to Iblis, Satan, the Islamic equivalent of Satan, is a jinn who rebelled against Allah rather than angel. I think that might just be words, but they're trying to convey something similar, though. Yeah. I was reading once that most cultures have very, very similar basic belief structures around things like ghosts, possession, demons. And the question was, why? Why is there a culture in, the North, in the Americas, separated by thousands of years and 10 plus 20,000 miles, but they have a very, it's like they're looking at the same thing but describing it differently. How is that possible? Unless they're actually seeing something. Is there something actually there?
Yeah. I mean, we all intuitively know. It's that thing where, like, when you're a kid, you have all these weird experiences, and you get older and you kind of explain them away. I didn't see a ghost. I didn't feel that scary thing that one time. I didn't hear a voice. I didn't do that. But when and then now you're an adult, you rationalize everything. And then, of course, if the enemy is pushing you towards sin, they're like, well, I don't have to do that anymore. I got this guy locked in, so I'll just let him live in his sort of apathy, and then we'll just see what happens with him. But
so, like, you mentioned you spent time in the Church of Satan. Was that correct?
Yeah. So I was involved with like the Church of Satan, so like the political organization.
Okay.
So they pretend to be Satanists. This is huge quotation marks because they are Satanists.
Right.
It's like a trick. It would basically be like if I started a fake Christian church and a bunch of people showed up and I was like, all right, so we all don't have sex before marriage anymore and we're going to pray the Our Father and worship Christ. But it's all aesthetic. Don't worry. We wear the crosses, but it's a joke. Anyway, give your soul over to Jesus, talk about it, and follow the laws. And you're like, well, it doesn't seem very aesthetic if I'm doing it, right? If I'm, and so Satanism, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law and all these other things. And so you think like, oh, this is a goofy, like I'm just scaring silly Christians who are trying to put the 10 Commandments outside of courthouses, but you're participating in Satanism proper. I mean, that is Satanism.
Yeah, I would just be curious, like the extent of interactions you had with demonic elements.
Well, within that organization, there are people just doing political things and being aesthetic and whatever. But then, of course, there's a bunch of people doing magic and witchcraft. And I did get involved in that for a time where I was like, I don't know. I was reading. I've always been a fan of philosophy and stuff. When I was young, I was an edgy atheist. I had to read all the Four Horsemen. I loved Hitchens. Then I got into Albert Camus, and I was like, "Ooh, The Stranger." I'm not a nihilist. I'm an absurdist. I'm smarter than everybody. And then, of course, you keep going along in life. And then eventually, I was like, "Well, if I'm open to all this stuff, why wouldn't I be open to like the occult or whatever? Let's see what it's about." And I read a book that I'm not going to name, but it's a book about a type of magic that's very popular that most people do, and I started to do some of the stuff in there and it started working. And that was like a big moment for me where I went from sort of being like I would describe myself as an agnostic atheist. I would do the Sam Harris grift where I'm like, no, I'm like kind of an atheist. I'm just not all the way I'm not doing presumption, but I'm an atheist otherwise. I would do that, and that pushed me fully into like, nope, that's right. Yeah, something's going on. There's something happening. And then, of course, I got scared and gave that up. And then over time, I got very, very lucky and experienced a miracle, which brought me to Christ. But like in that time, I mean, I experienced lots of terrifying things. And I experienced, that stuff works and you have to pay like a severe and intense price for it too.
So there are people that intentionally try to invoke demons?
Yes.
They try to summon them? I mean, obviously we know that, but like they want to be possessed, or how does this work?
I'll let you answer.
I mean, yeah. So there are people who are inviting demons into their lives, trying to bring them out, trying to just. So there are people who they're doing magic, and so they're trying to affect their material reality by doing rituals and things, and then you go beyond that into people who are mad at God, and then they start to do things in order to hurt God or the people who follow God. And then the more you do one, the more it leads into the other. Because again, sin darkens the intellect and makes you angry, which makes you insane, which makes you susceptible to manipulation by demons. The next thing you know, you're a guy who wears a diaper with your girlfriend on the weekends and you do magic and you're a huge loser, you know? Like those are the types of people who do this stuff. They're creeps and weirdos. Like universally, there's no one who does this kind of stuff that's like not into the weirdest, grossest thing you've ever heard of, right? And so basically they do get so into it that then they begin to be obsessed with power. And yeah, just like the idea that like I could bring this into the world, or I could summon or interact with this. Like you become obsessed with the power that they make you feel, I suppose. And so people become really into that. I was never into that. I think very luckily I was like, oh, I want money, I want women, I want success, you know, all that kind of stuff. And as soon as my life began to fall apart, as I received certain things and I experienced some really, really dark things, I was like, oh, I'm out. So this is real, but you know, there's a price and a cause for everything. So I'm out, very luckily. But there are people who get really into it. And then they go even beyond what they're doing for themselves, and now they're trying to do to others. So then you get like satanic ritual abuse, where people are like hurting children or trying to consecrate people to the devil, or do things like they're playing the long game. So they want the devil to hurt your family 2 generations from now type stuff. Wow. And exorcists, as far as I know, do experience that.
Yeah, there's a Latin adage within the church, lex orandi, lex credendi. So that's the law of prayer. The way we pray is going to determine how we believe, right? So, you know, people. This is one of the reasons that the church doesn't put exorcisms out for people to kind of sort of look at it as spectators, right, is because you can become obsessive, right? And maybe it's just an interest. Maybe you're just looking at this because you're interested, but as you become interested, then all of a sudden you want to see, well, does this work if I do it, right? Well, then as you start seeing, well, does this work? Then you start to believe this and you start to live this life, right? But the same thing's true invertly, right, within the church. And that's why I think within a younger culture today, we live in a world where nothing is true, nothing can be accepted as true. And so now you start seeing an uptick of people becoming Catholic, for instance, young people becoming Catholic, because they're finding the one place they can believe there's a foundation of truth. And not only do they become Catholic, but they become traditionalist Catholic, right?
Right.
Like they're going into that. And so because the way you believe, you know, the way you pray is going to affect what you believe. And so they're going deeper and deeper into that. And I think that's a good thing to see. I saw a statistic just last week, 2 different statistics. One is that for the first time in 20 years, more people were baptized Catholic than left the church last year.
Yeah.
And then the other is that for the first time in decades, more of the younger generation are going to church, right? Gen Z and millennials are going to church more than the boomers are now.
Especially this past weekend.
Yeah. This past weekend. Absolutely. Right. So a friend of mine is he's the priest at Louisiana State University, and they always have. I mean, so LSU, right? Louisiana is a very Catholic state, right? They have the highest population of Catholic students out of any university in the country. It's always a high attendance at Mass. This weekend, packed out, right? A student texted me and said that, you know, he got there and couldn't even get a seat.
Wow.
Yeah, my church was
sold out churches.
Standing room
we were packed too.
Yeah. I travel most weekends, and churches. Well, I'm going to Catholic churches. They're packed everywhere. It's crazy. But this last weekend, I went to a shrine that is like an hour drive outside of Denver or whatever, and it was packed. Yeah. So I was like, wow, there were a lot of people there. Mm-hmm. It was really cool.
Yeah.
I think, you know, to get a little bit more to the political now, I guess, as we're getting into it, a lot of people had a sort of a wake-up call witnessing what just happened this past week. Mm-hmm. And now it's fascinating what we're seeing. I would only describe as demonic. These videos that people have made celebrating Charlie Kirk's death look like something you would expect a movie to depict as a demon. They're cackling and laughing and making Kubrick stares at the camera and calling for more.
Yeah.
And it's a behavior that we, as humans, associate with a demonic, in our movies, this is how the possessed behave. And so I see this and I'm thinking, the way I described why I made a video last week, said it's time to bring back exorcisms. And the point I was making is that I've traveled the world. I've met a lot of people. I've met some bad people. And almost entirely, the motives and behaviors of the individuals are entirely human. That is, they follow human vice, which would be the actions taken for reasons of envy, wrath, lust, gluttony. These are very obvious things to us. So when someone attacks another person, why did they do it? And wrath, they felt anger, sometimes just for no reason they were angry. Envy, they stole from you because they were jealous of something you had, they attacked you. And recently I've experienced things that defy human vice. Typically when humans do bad things, they're getting something satisfactory from it, either emotionally or physically. But with the death of Charlie Kirk, while some of it you can describe as emotionally satisfactory to those who have missions which are at odds with Charlie, a lot of it just seems to defy any kind of human benefit in any way. And that to me feels demonic, that the only purpose of making a video like this or of desecrating a memorial, why desecrate a memorial to somebody? You don't benefit from it in any way. It only defiles and causes suffering. And I feel like we've seen a massive uptick in that, which to me feels like demonic possession or influence.
Yeah. So like one of the things I noticed, right? So you had this shooting at the Catholic school in Wisconsin, right? Another story that happened within the same week that hardly anyone knew about it was there was a shooting at St. Michael's Abbey in California that was thwarted, right? So a man from Alabama drove all the way to St. Michael's Abbey, right? He called himself the Angel of Death. He's going to St. Michael's Abbey, right? Who's the angel of life and defending the Lord, right? It's a Norbertine monastery.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, it's like the monastery right
now. Yeah, I mean,
it's the place. It's the center of traditional Catholic culture right now, essentially.
Yeah, especially because they're all over Instagram and that kind of thing, right? So
they're doing beautiful.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of great things there. And right, so this man goes there. This is within the same week as the Wisconsin shooting. And I don't know the full story about how they discovered him, that he had this plot, right? So that happened then, right? And then you have the Charlie Kirk shooting the next week, right? And within that same week, I received a letter in the mail from an unknown person in Miami. Never met this person. I opened it up and it's all these just written in Sharpie, in red, white, and black Sharpie, this obscene stuff about Trump, about conservative Catholic women, and there's no real threat in it, but it's just gibberish, and it was written on lottery tickets.
Man, that's the craziest part right there.
Yeah, and I get this, and my immediate thought is I turned it over to the police. I don't think it's threatening, but it's all in the same context of all of this, and we've increased security at our schoolmasters.
You just scratch them first,
just
to see. Hey, hold up, wait a minute.
They weren't scratch-offs. They weren't scratch-offs. They were Powerball tickets, but they were blank Powerball tickets. But still,
I think this story was largely missed by most people because it was stopped.
Yeah,
I think
so. And NBC, look at this: Alabama man who called himself the Angel of Death arrested and accused of threatening California monastery. They said that he had weapons. He had brass knuckles, a dirk, or dagger. I think it's funny that they have to qualify what a dirk is because people don't know what it is.
That's not fun.
He had a large capacity magazine. I think it's silly that in and of itself was a crime, but considering the threats he was making, they're saying planning, sophistication, and professionalism, drove from Alabama to the victim church to reiterate threats he had made via email.
Okay, so there were emails.
I mean, look at this.
Yeah.
Whoa.
That's what he had.
Golly.
So that's a little bit more than just he's carrying a gun on him. Yeah.
This is what's terrifying
the
is
duct
that
tape is concerning.
right. What's terrifying is the stories of violence or just this criminal behavior. We've been getting so many of these things over the past several weeks. It's scary when you realize the ones they stop you don't know about.
Yeah.
If all police and all law enforcement just said we're on vacation this week, I bet you'd have thousands of stories.
Yeah. If you
things like this.
Just a few months ago in Abbeville, Louisiana, right? So they were having a Sunday mass. It was First Communion, I believe, and a man came in with a gun and attempted to discharge it. And luckily, I believe they have a person who was a deputy or something, and so they were able to grab him quick enough and then put the church on lockdown.
I think I heard this one.
But it's one of these things that was thwarted, and so it didn't get a lot of attention.
Yeah, there was someone who was attacked in Spokane, Washington. A priest was attacked on the altar. Like someone tried to get up there and attack him. And you can fact check me. I don't know how true this is, but I'd seen a meme float or like an infographic floating around. So this is not, but saying there have been 500 attacks on Catholic churches since 2020. It's
been a lot.
Some absurd number.
Arson.
I know of several just personally that I've like gone to a parish and they're like, you missed it. Last week, a guy fist fought our priest and we had to grab him. Like, you missed it. Someone came in and like did this. It's like, wow.
Easter Sunday
all the time.
In my parish this year. So I have two different churches. And so on Sunday morning, I go to 8 a.m. at one church and then come back to the Basilica for 10 a.m. And when I got back for the 10 a.m. Mass for Easter Sunday morning, someone had come in and taking the flowers off the altar and hurled them across the church. Right. It's wild to see these things happening.
Yeah. I went to this church in Queens. It was like a neighborhood where there was a lot of disturbed people, and every Sunday without fail, someone would come in, try to fist fight like the pastor, try to fist fight a dean. And it was like a constant flow of just disturbed people, and I'm like, what is going on?
It's like the Gracies when they used to run their gym and random dudes would show up to challenge them.
Literally.
Your pastor's like, this is not a jiu-jitsu place. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, 'cause I remember my pastor started taking up boxing. I'm like, dude, I don't blame you.
For real,
it's getting crazy.
dude. You got to get a Robin Biggs situation going for him. Just get him a big security guard.
Yeah, and like the police were just like, again, okay.
That's crazy.
Someone will be there later. And it's like, dude.
But I'm glad that, for instance, the Michigan shooting and the Minnesota shooting and the California shooting that was thwarted, both are being investigated by the FBI as a Catholic hate crime. I don't think that would have happened under the previous administration.
Yeah, that's very rare. Yeah, I was. I got in trouble for being Catholic during the last administration.
This is interesting. I pulled this up from Fox News. It's from a couple weeks ago. Attacks on U.S. churches have risen significantly since 2021, report finds. 1,384 hostile incidents targeting churches from 2018 to 2024, with more than half coming in the past 2 years.
Oof.
Yeah.
Dang, that's an uptick, and then goes towards the demonic presence in society narrative there.
I mean, this is the craziest thing to me is how it's hyperfixation on Christianity. It's almost always. I mean, there's tons of things in the mainstream that crazy people could target, but it seems like often the political movements are targeting Christian values. You can take a look at, I mean, I'll just keep it vague for the purpose of not being overtly political. The left in this country seems to object wholly to Christian values and give a pass to other horrible values or religious structures.
Yeah. Or religious structures that say they're close to Christian values but are not.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, look with Kirk, what problems, what acts they have to grind with, and what they're drilling down on. Is they're drilling down on beliefs that are widely held by Christians in the United States, which is like
pro-life,
opposition to abortion, opposition to gay marriage. Like, these things are very conventional and biblical beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's specifically what they're not talking about his tax policy or his opinion on foreign affairs. Yeah. They couldn't care. It's the specific Christian values that he held. That's what they're drilling down on.
My friend Harrison, who's the kicker for the Kansas City Chiefs, right? He spoke at Benedictine last year for their commencement address, and I did tell him, I was like, maybe you should have said all of these at a commencement address. But either way, right? I mean, he's at a Catholic college espousing Catholic beliefs, right? And he's talking about marriage and the family and encouraging them to go off and have good family lives, right? And he's getting death threats, right? People want him to get fired, right? They're threatening his family. So a member of the Kansas City mayor's office posted his address on Twitter.
Gosh.
It's just ridiculous.
It's wild to imagine that being on the other foot in any way, shape, or form. That if someone from another faith was like, remember to live out the values of your faith, women, we're doing arranged marriage, or whatever, people would be like, that's their culture.
Make sure you go and wear your burqa today. It doesn't happen.
But when he does it as a Catholic university and gets a standing ovation or whatever at the end, people are like, well, you see all the women clapping? That was evil, clearly. And then they go after him. You're like, he's at a Catholic college saying Catholic things to Catholic people.
Yeah.
You're out of your mind.
Well, Stephen Crowder had a really great example of this years ago where with this baker in Colorado, They went and they said, bake me the cake with this message. He refused. He got sued. They came after him. They sued him several times. And I believe it was Crowder. He went to Dearborn, Michigan. I could be getting the story wrong, but he went to a heavily Muslim area and asked Muslim bakeries to make cakes for a gay marriage and a gay wedding, and they refused. No one cared.
Yeah.
No liberal organizations came out and opposed it. They were totally fine with it. Just when the Christian says no.
Yeah. There's the subversion of Christianity, because Christianity is like to them inherently attached to whiteness somehow, despite the fact that it's a Middle Eastern and African religion.
It's growing faster in Africa than anywhere else in the world.
Yeah, that then was, put through the world through Rome and but this is so funny, they think it's attached to colonization or whatever that means.
Despite Islam also being a colonial.
Despite all cultures having a colonial history,
right.
The Lakota Indians, the Comanche, the Apache, Aztecs.
No one ever complains about how the Pacific Islanders colonized all these islands.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
half
silly.
kidding, by the way.
Every single culture has been colonized by another culture, but we're somehow uniquely evil because of our position in history and the fact that we did the Industrial Revolution. I guess I don't know.
I think they just want to destroy us.
Yeah.
That's why they will defend. Everything they claim that they're opposed to can be seen in other cultures they don't care about, even here in the United States.
Yeah,
it's just the United States.
Christianity is the bedrock of Western civilization, specifically the United States. And so it's like, of course, these people fundamentally hate their fathers. And what is more paternal, what is more representative of a father than Christianity, of God? And so, of course, these people are going to react with not just vitriol, but they have a personal grudge against Christianity because they feel like it's in direct opposition to every single thing they stand for.
Well, if you feel abandoned by your father, you would also, and as a young man who grew up without a father and made all the mistakes young men without fathers make, I also was an atheist who was mad. Why would you let this happen to me? I didn't have a father to look to. And that's the number of, and again, this might be something I'm being wrong, but I've heard from priests and even other Protestant pastors and stuff, the number one indicator of if a child is going to grow up and be a healthy, normal Christian adult is if they get to see their father be devout. Yeah. That's it. Not their mother, not their cousins, not anyone else, not even their priest. It's seeing your father submit himself to God.
There's a statistic I saw recently. It was actually done by the Southern Baptist Convention. They did the study, but it was if a child is the one to recommend the family go to church, right, 3% of the families will go. If it's a mother, 17% of families. If the father recommends, 98% of families will go to church. That's the effect of fatherhood. And so we are experiencing a crisis of fatherhood, I think, right now.
Absolutely.
This is I saw this video from Charlie Kirk, actually, in the wake of the devastating, horrible assassination. Videos from Charlie have been going massively viral. And there's a really interesting one where he is challenged on whether or not this country was a Christian nation. And we've had this debate many times. And we hear from liberals all the time saying the Founding Fathers intentionally did not put it in the Constitution because it was not meant to be a Christian nation. But what they're omitting from this is the reason why the founding documents at the federal level omit religion was because the states had slightly different takes on it. And so the federal government was saying, we're not going to force Catholic Maryland to agree with Protestant Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And so the federal government says we're stepping back. But the states themselves, just so I pulled this up, required belief in God or Christianity. Massachusetts required officials to declare a belief in Christianity. North Carolina barred anyone who denied the truth of the Protestant religion. Pennsylvania required a belief in God and the divine inspiration of the Old and New Testament. South Carolina required belief in Protestant religion. Virginia did not, and Virginia guaranteed freedom of religion with no religious test. New York guaranteed free exercise, but still assumed general belief in God as a cultural norm without a legal requirement. Rhode Island, before the revolution, it was founded on religious freedom and had no test for belief in God. Many of the states explicitly have in their constitutions Christianity.
I'll add to that. I mentioned this in the car right over. I believe in the state of Connecticut, it's technically still part of the state constitution that a Catholic can't hold office.
In the American freedom of religion isn't freedom to just be like whatever, like, oh, I worship flying spaghetti monster, I'm edgy or whatever. It's freedom to choose your denomination of Christianity without being brutally murdered like happening in Europe. Yeah. So Quakers, Lutherans, Anglicans, and Catholics were like, all right. And they were doing the meme that we're doing now. We are at war, but not with each other.
Real.
Let's get these colonies going. listen, you guys go up there. We're weird about Catholics, and then of course we name it Maryland. We're not beating the allegations there. That we it's just that poke everyone in the eye like we're mama's boys. But
they did amend a lot of their state constitutions. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But at the founding, they say this wasn't a Christian nation. It's like, well, most of the states were explicitly.
we mentioned God in the Constitution 4 times. That's not nothing. 4 times in your Declaration. It's a big deal.
Yeah. The motto
or the Declaration of Independence.
Congress,
I can't
right?
remember. But also,
good.
In as far as Christianity goes with all them, and I lost my train of thought. It's all good. Continue.
I was going to read this from the North Carolina Constitution. It says, no person who shall deny the being of God or the truth of the Protestant religion or the divine authority either of the Old or New Testaments shall be capable of holding any office or place of trust or profit in the civil department within this state. And that is, they worded that very, very well to make sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot of commas there.
Who said the Constitution was written for people who believe in God and would be
John Adams said for religious and or ethical people.
Religious and ethical people. Otherwise,
Moral
it would be
people, yeah.
insufficient.
Wholly insufficient. For anyone else.
Yeah.
South Carolina, so the states that required Protestants, Catholics were barred from holding office. So it's actually more than Connecticut.
Yeah, because they were coming off the heels of like the English Civil War and the glorious. So it was more of a political arrangement because they were terrified of like what happened to France and Spain.
Yeah,
and so like. Then the 19th century rolls around, and then we get used to Catholics. We're like, all right, you guys, maybe drink a bit much, but you're on the team. All right, you can hold office.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then like you said, because I think it was Article 6 of the Constitution like bars religious tests for federal office, and that kind of just trickled down into the state constitution.
And that also was like a part of the undesirableness of Irish and Italian immigrants. They're loyal to the Pope, yada yada yada. Yeah.
So rowdy.
Yeah, we are a rowdy bunch.
We are.
So, but yeah, it's to say that the America isn't inherently Christian is like
crazy.
It's a lie on its face. It's a crazy thing to say and to argue for. To be like Benjamin Franklin was a freaky pervert, so everyone else wasn't. Like what? No,
they make these founders like as if they're just these total progressive. Like if you could just show them like the religious demographic makeup of Michigan, they'd be like, actually, just never mind. Explicitly Anglican. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. We've had such debates over whether it's a Christian nation, and I think typically what I find of many liberals is they're just ignorant of the details. I did a political compass test earlier, which is going to be up at like 2 p.m., which finds that I am a social libertarian. It means I'm actually pretty lefty. I do think the political compass test is flawed in how they ask the questions. It presents absolutes, which... if you're not going to just assert absolutes, it's going to call you a leftist because the questions are framed in such a way. But ultimately, my point, what we really define as left and right in this country is whether or not you believe what's true or you believe the lies. And so often these debates, the reason why the right has Charlie Kirk, the reason why he was able to do these big events and rally and debate is because the truth was on his side. He knew that he could stand there and whatever you asked him, he could throw the truth at you. And these liberals would be like, well, I got nothing. And that's most of his videos. The left responded by saying he was insulting ignorant college kids. He let literally anybody ask him any question about what they believed. And the purpose of going to colleges to talk to these people is where it's where people are supposed to be learning about philosophy, morals, the greater world. And that's the place to go do it.
Yeah. Well, but the problem is education within the United States, unless you're going to a very specific, liberal arts, conservative university or whatever it is, right? It's so influenced by wokeism, right? So, I am the rector of a Catholic school in Mississippi, and I stay in contact with a lot of students who are off at state universities and that kind of thing. And they're being required to write papers, against Trump or that kind of thing, right? That's a requirement for class, right? And so we're educating people. On the state level, I mean, that's a state institution, right? To question the government and to question morals and traditional, Christian understandings of the world. And so, you're going to have people, going after Charlie Kirk, because they're being given this in schools that this is what they have to believe, right? Or they can't pass the class.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the whole idea of free speech is only supposed to work in a moral Christian society where murder is inherently abhorrent.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you can't murder someone unless you're in a duel with it, unless there's consent, because murder is a legal term. You can kill, you can't murder. That is, obviously the difference between self-defense and stuff. And that's where the confusion comes when people are like, you're a Christian, aren't you supposed to be some kind of hippie that lets me do whatever I want to you, that kind of thing. And it's like, no, that's not what Christianity is, even a little bit. But so people, we're supposed to live in a society where everyone is has Christian morality, has massive societal consequences no matter where they go, in what state, because if they go against Christian morality, people will withhold their ability to participate in church, to participate in society at large, to participate in polite society. But now we're finding ourselves in a situation where like, oh, actually, we're trying to do the virtuous thing. And they, not only do they not believe in God, they don't even believe morality is objective. They don't believe in virtue. They're all utility. And if you're living in a materialist utilitarian world as set out by Marx or whoever, then yeah, shooting people is what solves problems. That's the utilitarian answer.
It drives me crazy when I hear people say, well, conservatives, Republicans, right? They're bringing Nazism into the country. They go, well, it couldn't be further from the truth, right? I mean, what was the Nazi agenda? It was basically this utilitarian society, right? To espouse, to get rid of the sort of Christian undertones of everything, and we're just going to live according to money and our own beliefs and that kind of thing, and that's not at all what the right is trying to do.
Yeah, every leftist organization from, the French Revolution. Obviously, they destroyed the Catholic Church, they destroyed relics, they murdered hundreds of clergy and nuns, beheaded them in guillotines, tried to make them renounce their faith. They turned the churches into the Church of Reason, which isn't super creepy or weird at all. Then they even tried to destroy the calendar and make a revolutionary calendar. Napoleon, he believed in liberalism, but he didn't believe in the revolutionary social ideas. So he reinstated the Catholic Church, put them back in charge of education and stuff. And then he created a country that was so powerful the entire world had to fight him 6 times before they stopped him.
And then he tried invading Russia in winter.
Yeah. You can't invade. Well, you can invade Russia if you're Mongol, but otherwise you can't.
And actually, I think it's funny that people call it the French Revolution, where there's like, how many were there? 4 or something? 5?
Yeah.
Some stupid amount of them just
because there was the Vendée. They did one of the first Christian genocide, or not the first Christian genocides, but the first modern European Christian genocide, where the Vendée region of France refused to renounce Catholicism or surrender. And the rebellion there was so bad that they asked Napoleon to go, and he refused and was actually removed from the military for a time. Almost ended his entire career because it was so disgusting what the revolution was doing to Bible-believing people in France. And then, of course, that extends to the Bolshevik Revolution, the Spanish Civil War. What's the first thing the anarchists did? Let's dig up nuns' bodies and pose with them. Let's sexually assault and murder people in the clergy. Let's destroy churches and relics and history, And of course, then they galvanize everyone against them. And then they have so many problems that they have to defend their own supply lines on their own territory. So yeah, moral bankruptcy doesn't help you win wars.
Yeah.
They called it the Red Terror in Spain.
Yeah, it was. It was so bad that Tolkien sided with the fascists in Spain. So, that says something. If your better choice is Franco, then that's pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. August saw. I'm just grabbing a random portion of the Spanish Civil War. 2,077 clerical victims, 2 months of civil war, 3,400 priests, monks, and nuns had been murdered. The same day of the fatal injury of Buenaventura Durruti, 52 prisoners were executed by anarchists, militiamen as reprisals. That's crazy.
The priesthood.
Some of the Republican death squads were heavily staffed by members of the Soviet Union's secret police, the NKVD. According to Ronald Rudash, the price the Republicans paid for Soviet aid was the very factor that led to the Republic's eventual demise. In exchange for military aid, Stalin demanded the transformation of the Republic into a prototype for the so-called people's democracies of post-war Eastern and Central Europe.
Yeah. And then of course, the leftists began to fight each other. like they do. So the anarchists were fighting the PUOM or whatever, POUM, I can't remember. That's who Orwell fought with, and they became disillusioned with them and left. And then, of course, Orwell very famously talked about his experiences and how disillusioned he became with communism and everything, and how he stopped being a communist. And, of course, he became a democratic socialist. I can't remember. But anyway...
30,000 priests and monks is the total number of religious men killed.
Yeah, it's insane.
Wow.
And people think it may be bigger, too, because there were, people who... religious people who went to Spain to help and then, weren't documented and were murdered or whatever else. But didn't Orwell very specifically say while he was in Spain that the most voracious and terrifying of the Soviet agents were young women? And he was like, the women were always the ones who were the most intense and the most willing to carry out pull the party line. And I'm like, man, 80%. I feel like it was almost 80 to 90% women celebrating Charlie's death and being insane. And it's like, wow, that tracks pretty well. When women lose the ability to nurture and to be kind and loving, even in the face of hardship or frustration or whatever, that's when you know that's demonic, right?
Yeah.
That's the reverse of what a woman is, to cackle at someone's death.
There's this quote from 1984. He's talking about the young women. He said, "We're the most bigoted adherents of the party, the swallowers of slogan, the amateur spies and nosers out of unorthodoxy."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Winston, the protagonist, I think, wrote that. But
yeah, isn't that wild?
But,
yeah.
Geez, yeah.
It's really interesting how it mirrors what's going on in our society a bit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
What percentage of these? I mean, this is kind of what we've been getting at, but of these emotional sort of ailments that we're seeing are just spiritual attacks from demons. I know we've been getting at this for the whole episode, but
yeah, I don't know if I can give a percentage. I would say, obviously of the calls that I get, the overwhelming majority of them are usually of some other explanation. Mm-hmm. But I believe that on the whole, what we're seeing in our culture, it may not be possession in itself, right? But it's demonic activity, right? It's oppression. It's the ways that, again, if we begin to live a certain way, then we're going to begin to believe a certain way, and so the enemy is influencing the culture in that way, and it's a trickle down method, right? So why are women having a difficulty in understanding, sort of the inherent dignity of being a woman? I think that it has to do with the fact that we have this crisis of fatherhood in our culture, right? It's all hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so when you take away one of the legs of the stool's going to fall over, and so then that's the enemy's goal, right? As he wants chaos, ultimately speaking.
How does the church, Father, determine force? Because I know you told a couple times already where priests had to restrain a man that was trying to take the host. Mm-hmm. Now, there's examples of that. Everyone has probably heard a story like that. But with the violence going on right now, how do you guys determine what's appropriate, when you should step in and restrain someone, when you should block someone from entering the church? Like, how do you guys how do you determine that?
Yeah, so when the church is considering to perform a solemn exorcism, right, there's a standard procedure that has to be gone through, where they get medical tests and psychological tests and that sort of thing. If someone's in the instance, right, they're in my communion line, no one is allowed to take the host, right? So how do I determine? It's like, well, if you don't consume it, then I determine to take it from you. That's the way it is. We don't have any, or at least not in my diocese, we have no rules to determine who can enter and exit the church. Now, I will say, since the Connecticut shooting, we're a lot more careful, especially about our school mass, right? So we're locking all the doors except the front door, and then there's someone at the door monitoring who's entering and exiting. But I mean, there are going to be a number of people who are coming to my church all day long who may have, I may visually discern they're weird, but it doesn't mean they're necessarily possessed, right? I mean, there's, for instance, if you're in a populated area, you're going to find homeless people in the church. Why? Because they need somewhere to go and the church is open, right? And so they should be able to go, and a lot of homeless people are dealing with mental illness. It doesn't mean they're possessed, right? So that's a difficult thing, right? There's no one that I'm just going to stand there like, well, you can't come in because I could smell the demon on you, like that doesn't happen. But, I do think that looking at the culture on a greater whole, we can start to see patterns that are what's the word I'm looking for? They can denote to us that the enemy is involved. And maybe you want to comment on that as well. But I think if we're seeing repetitive patterns of things that we saw in paganism, for instance, we brought paganism up. Well, we may not have people. We do have some people building statues to idols in America, but we may not have what we recognize visually as paganism, but we're definitely having paganism within our morals today, and it's producing eventually the same fruit, right? We talked about abortion, human sacrifice, and violence, and this sort of hatred. I think it's ironic that the word hate is thrown out so much towards people with Christian ideals, when the reality, at least from my perspective, is that where the hate is directed is Christianity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, kind of in addition to that, we've seen, this was pointed out to me, is that there's been a huge decline in hospitals. There's been a lack of priests and nuns in hospitals, or just Christianity generally, less Christian hospitals. What impact do you think that has on like the physical ailment of people?
Oh, so within the church, right? So there's, ever since sort of just, I guess, the whole revolution of thought in the 60s and 70s, right? That every aspect of society was impacted, and the church was impacted as well, right? And so we saw a significant decline in young men becoming priests, especially women going into religious orders. And we feel that in the church, right? So in my diocese in Mississippi, right? So we're the largest geographic diocese east of the Mississippi River. So from one corner to the other is about 6.5 hours. We have about over 90 parishes in our diocese and about 30-something priests, which means that all of us are stretched very thin. So I'm responsible for Basilica, another parish, for the largest Catholic school in the state of Mississippi, in addition to other duties I have where I work, for the bishop on some committees, and I'm working on my PhD, right? So to use the line from Tolkien, right, I'm butter stretched and, stretched thin and too much bread. That's how I feel, but that doesn't allow me to interact with people the way that priests would have been able to in older times, right? The house I live in is a 3-story antebellum mansion that used to have tons of priests in, and I live in it alone, right? And so it used to be this community of Natchez, which is relatively a small town by American standards, would have had multiple priests to go out and visit with people and be with the sick and be with people who are struggling. And now they don't have access to that, and I think people are suffering because of that. But that's, like I said, that's an effect of the culture of the day, where people just weren't being faithful, and so they weren't going into seminaries. It's also a reflection, I think, of the abuse scandal that the Catholic Church went to in America, that people didn't want to be, put into an area where they're automatically assumed to be an abuser. Yeah. And I'll say the day I was ordained, I was walking to a restaurant and had my collar on, and a woman held her son back from me and said, "Stay away from little boys," right? So immediately Catholic priests are assumed to be the wrong person, right? But yes, we're feeling the effects of that in the church. I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, yeah, I was just curious, I was just curious, is there perhaps an increase in these physical ailments? Like, could this be a result of like spiritual attacks from?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Is I think that because we have become more and more an unchristian society, that's given the enemy a greater access to people. Right?
Remember, we're a body-soul composite.
Yeah.
Our bodies and our souls as we're alive, they're irremovable from each other. They are distinct and unique and together. And so what affects one can affect the other. Right. That's why sin has temporal consequences on our bodies.
Sure.
And so when you are spiritually sick or suffering or demons or whatever, that absolutely has effects on your physical and mental health. Like, for instance, I was severely depressed before my conversion. I had sought out medication and help for almost 10 years. And one of the things right before my conversion that helped me push towards moving into conversion was I was at the point where I was doing the best I'd ever done in life. Like, I had access to women, I had all the money I could want, my career was going well, I lived in New York, I was famous with friends with famous people, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, everyone's miserable, and I am the saddest I've ever been, and genuinely thinking about ending it. And I was like, what is going on? I should be the happiest I've ever been. It was a spiritual sickness. Whereas now I don't even remember what it was like to feel that way. I can kind of just remember the heaviness of depression and the sort of like strangeness of being sad for no reason, and the frustration at that then begets more depression, that then makes you want to do less, then makes you feel less understood, that then as a man makes you feel embarrassed. Because you're like, dude, I'm a pussy. I'm like over here being sad about nothing. And when people ask me why I'm sad, I don't know. I'm sad because I'm sad. Well, you have friends. Do you want me to help you? I don't know. I'm sad.
Yeah.
And you're confused, and the depression builds, and then it begets itself. And then you're in a cycle of destruction,
Yeah.
you know? And then you're like, well, I'm going to medicate. And then what do we medicate with? It's drugs, pornography.
Well, yeah, I mean, because that's what I'm getting at is like with the removal of the clergy from hospitals and these sorts of institutions is, I mean, if someone comes in with that sort of situation, they're saying, I'm feeling these things, they'll just say, oh, here's some more drugs, and just it'll go away, rather than providing a spiritual solution, Christian solution.
I mean, we used to, like, as a father of my household, I have the right to bless my wife and children. And so if my kids or my wife is sick, like, I pray over them and, you know, do the sign of the cross and pray over them. And like, that is something that has been like really life-changing in our home. I don't know. I think if you're a Christian person and your wife or kids or people in your home are suffering, like, pray over them. Not just like in an interior way, like for real. Put your hand on them and be like, in the name of Jesus, like, I hope I heal this person and take care of them and stuff. At the very least, you're doing nothing but loving that person as best you can. And at the very most, you're invoking the power of the Holy Spirit that can change people for real.
One of the most contentious debates we've ever had on this show was Orthodox versus Catholic.
Yeah, we get intense, which is so stupid.
And I'm just thinking about how funny it's going to be with like the rise of Christianity now among Gen Z, the church attendance and all that. I'm imagining like the political dispute of left and right in 10 years will be the Orthodox versus the Catholics.
Yeah, once the right wins so big,
Right?
Relitigate these problems.
And it's like the political debates on the stage are literally, how do you describe it? Internecine conflict.
Yeah.
The Holy Father has been making in pretty wild strides towards maybe not church unification, but church healing. Yeah. I feel like we might not unify the churches, but we might get to a point where the Orthodox are universally allowing us to participate in some of their sacraments. Whereas
it's a cool year for him to become pope because this is the 1700th anniversary of the Nicene Creed.
Yeah.
Right. So, which also like already denotes like, okay, 1700 years. It's a long time for this creed to affect, you know, the entire Western culture. Right. But but it's a great time for him to start these dialogues.
Yeah. He also recently reaffirmed traditionalism and the catechism in the face of German bishops trying to bless couples in like a sneaky way against Pope Francis's orders. And so Holy Father's been doing great. Yeah. Way to go, Pope Leo. Let's go, Chicago.
Yeah, there you go.
Go White Sox.
I love Kellen's got, what is that, Portillo's? Yeah. Wearing a Portillo's shirt.
There you go.
Sick, dude. There we go.
I don't know why.
Hey, forget about it.
At the RNC, there's Portillo's.
Oh, when we were in Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Portillo's is the best.
Portillo's is good.
I feel bad for people. I think they got some in California. It's the best.
Well, I will say, so this is a completely tangent, but the best fried chicken I've ever had in my entire life is in Chicago, and I say that as a Southerner, which
Really?
is surprising. But it's the most woke leftist restaurant you'll ever go to with the rainbow flags outside. But I go there in my collar and get the chicken because it's so amazing.
This is like when gay people eat at Chick-fil-A secretly with their son, like they put on a mask and everything. I can't let anyone know.
It's called, I'll give them a tag. It's called honey butter fried chicken. But I found it because I asked Siri after a Cubs game where to go eat, and she brought me there. And it is the platonic form of fried chicken. It's amazing.
Wow. See, I didn't know this when I was younger that, because in Chicago growing up, the coasts are where all the culture is.
Okay.
Chicago's actually got the best food. And there's like the culinary schools are very famous. We used to do the Taste of Chicago. I don't even know if they do that anymore, where you buy tickets and then all the different crazy food all over the place. The other crazy thing too is y'all don't eat hot dogs. Yeah, people don't eat hot dogs anywhere.
I don't like.
Dude, I'm from Utah. I'm going to tell you right now, we're drinking soda and eating hot dogs. We're keeping it alive out there,
But
brother.
in Chicago, on a busy street, every other store is a hot dog shop. We don't have burger joints. We have hot dog joints.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then when I left Chicago, it was kind of weird because when you're in Chicago, you'll see a big sign with a hot dog on it. you go other places and it's just like a diner and they'll have burgers, but they won't sell hot dogs. But in Chicago, they do. Also, you guys don't have jardinera because you're uncultured. You're savages.
I don't know what that is.
Exactly.
I don't even know.
All right.
They are civilized and savage people. It's an Italian thing. It's cauliflower, celery, carrots, jalapenos, and it's pickled. We put it on our food.
That doesn't sound good.
Amazing.
It sounds bad.
Yours just says sweet. Oh, you can call it hot peppers outside of Chicago. No, hot jardinera. It's on his shirt. You see it?
Oh, Lord. Wow.
There you go.
Well.
Chicago's coming back. We got the Pope. He's going to mandate it.
Bob from Chicago, the White Sox fans, our Pope.
Yeah. This has been a lot of fun. It's a lot to go over, I guess. It's going to be interesting because the effect of the rise in church attendance and Christianity among Gen Z is largely affecting men.
Yeah.
I think they're going to pull the young women kicking and screaming. Figuratively, calm down, feminists.
before this revival, and I think I got in at the tail beginning of the revival, sort of. I converted, I guess it would be 3 years ago, or I converted 2 years ago, but I began my conversion a year before I was baptized. But there were lots of women. If getting women into church isn't the problem, there's always lots of women for some reason. Getting men into church is difficult because, of course, the church asks some pretty wild stuff of young men, like, hey, no sex, no masturbation, no none of that. Also, hey, you're going to be called to be the leader of your family and to protect everybody. And if people treat you bad, suck it up and do your job and be a man. And like, that's hard.
That's what a man is supposed to be.
Yeah, but my mental illness and my self-care.
All of these all these guys that go online and look for like these red pill dudes who are like, women are bad, it's not your fault, blah blah blah, men are mistreated, women have all the privilege and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, guys were always the ones who would take off their jacket for the lady to walk over.
Right.
Guys were the ones who would lay down in the mud and crawl through the trenches to fight for what they believed in. It was never that being a man meant you could sit on your couch, get whatever you wanted, and be some king without doing work.
Yeah.
Men were always sacrificing for everybody else.
Right.
But it's been fun. Gentlemen, do you want to say any last thoughts or whatever? Shout anything out?
No, other than I appreciate the invitation to be with you today.
It's been fun.
It's a nice conversation. Yeah.
Where can people find you?
So like I said, I'm the rector of the Basilica of St. Mary in Natchez. So if you look up our basilica, the only thing I really have out there is I have my homilies. There's a podcast, so they can listen to me. And I have just a few articles out there, but yeah, that's
Right
my
on.
background.
Very cool. Christ is King. You should pray. If you haven't, if you're a person who thinks Christianity is cringe, that's fine. I know what it looks like. I am Christian and it feels cringe sometimes. And that's cool. Pray anyway. Don't be embarrassed. Be a man and do it. And I'm a comedian, ShaneSmithComedy.com. I'm on tour all over the place. I have specials on Dry Bar, Angel Studios, Amazon, YouTube, wherever. Just Google face tattoo comedian. You'll find me.
I concur, Christ is King. Yeah. You can find me on X and Instagram at RealTapeBrown. I'll see you guys later.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know if you were talking. You should shout yourself out.
Yeah, you guys can follow me. I usually work behind the scenes chat, but this was fun. I thought it was a good conversation, especially in light of all the news. You guys can follow me at Kellen PDL. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Shane, for coming today. And yeah, see you guys next time.
We're back tonight, 8 p.m. for Timcast IRL, as we often are. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all later.